I hope men are listening and contemplating.
I'll be infuriating all the men listening, probably.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm all right with infuriating men.
Recently, Nicola Sturgeon appeared on a local radio programme and did an interview. She talked about experiencing imposter syndrome, where you feel you're not the right person for the job or you're not adequate for the role you find yourself in. And that was reported quite widely in the media. But some other aspects of this interview, which were actually quite controversial, I would say, sexist even, weren't reported at all. So we're going to listen to some of the things Nicola Sturgeon had to say, and then I'll respond.
Well, one of the things she's saying is often when we talk about women and getting more women into senior positions and getting women's voice heard, we talk about it as if we've got to change how women behave. That we've sort of, the problem with lack of diversity is something women are doing wrong. So we've got to fix the women. And the point that was being made is actually sometimes it's the men that we've got to fix. And this is a roundabout way of saying, yes, women need to make their voices heard and speak up more and push themselves forward. But actually sometimes what we need is for men to kind of hold themselves back and not speak so much. And the point, I can't remember the exact detail of this example, but that more men go forward for interview or apply for senior posts than women. And actually that's not because women are making better judgments about whether they're qualified for a post. You're getting lots of men who are not really qualified to put themselves forward anyway. So sometimes it's not so much pushing women forward, it's about having, fewer men who don't know what they're talking about, thinking that they have to fill the space all the time.
We need the men to get a bit more of the imposter syndrome, really. That's what we need.
Yeah, well, the women trade unionist who's just last year was the president of the Scottish Trade Union Congress. She sort of ran a campaign during her year in office of kind of step aside, brother, and making the point that yes, women have to push themselves forward a bit more, but actually sometimes the problem is men are not stepping aside when they should to give the space for women to come forward.
So Nicola Sturgeon wants women to change, because currently they don't apply for promotion enough, they don't push themselves forward in their careers, they seem to lack ambition, possibly. Does it ever occur to Nicola Sturgeon that maybe some of these women don't actually want to go up the career ladder to that extent? Maybe they've got other priorities, maybe they're quite happy with the job that they're doing now. Does it occur to Nicola Sturgeon that there's maybe men as well with the same sort of attitude? That even though they might have the ability to do more responsible work, to aim for promotion, they actually don't want that. So it's not just a male and female thing. There might be a skew in one direction or the other, but just some people are more ambitious than others. Some people put themselves forward for these roles more than others. Is that really a problem? So in any case, Nicola Sturgeon thinks we need to fix women so that they become more like men in this regard. And also, we need to fix men. Now, when it comes to men, what's their problem? Well, their problem is that they're too full of themselves and overconfident and have too high a view of themselves. They need to shut up and hold back and let the women apply for the jobs. Now, if women are a better judge of their qualification and suitability for a job, surely the assessment procedure that employers implement should deal with that. So if there's all these men putting themselves forward who are actually entirely unqualified and unsuitable for these jobs, they're not going to get them. So it shouldn't really be too much of a problem. On the other hand, for some roles, the ability or willingness to put yourself forward and take the initiative might be an indication that you are actually suitable for the job. If you're someone who's not willing to take that step, just wants to hold back a little bit till someone gives you a bit of extra encouragement, maybe you're not the person for certain types of roles. So a willingness to put yourself forward might actually be a valid part of an assessment process. Now notice here, we've got men who don't know what they're talking about. Imagine Nicola Sturgeon talking about, oh, there's lots of women who don't know what they're talking about. That would be extremely sexist, wouldn't it? So is this. So the problem with men is a character flaw. Okay, they're overconfident, they don't know what they're talking about, and yet they still want to take all these jobs. Whereas women, they don't have a character flaw, they just need a bit more encouragement. They're a bit more realistic and modest and humble. So men have got a character flaw, women have got a virtue, but we need to deal with both of those things so that they can have identical career paths. Now at the end, men need to step aside to make space. How exactly? Resign from their jobs? Or not apply for promotion because you feel it might be a woman's turn to get promoted this time? That's pretty controversial stuff. I'd be interested to hear Nicola Sturgeon spelling out exactly what she means there. Now, another theme intertwined with the discussion there was the idea that men talk too much. Where you've got a discussion going on, the men tend to dominate. Now, let's just think about that. I'm sure you can think of situations where there's actually been a woman who likes the sound of her own voice and dominates the conversation, and it's quite difficult to get a word in edgeways. You might think also of men who are quite diffident, who don't particularly put their views forward very strongly in discussion. So is this really a battle of the sexes issue? No, it's just a general politeness and good communication issue, but not to Nicola Sturgeon. Any ammunition for the battle of the sexes, and she's going to use it.
Of that.
And I think really importantly as well, it's a woman who behaves like a woman as opposed to previous leaders, we don't need to name drop them, but who actually led like men, if I'm honest, didn't they? They led like men, and therefore to have a woman who leads like a woman, it's just it's too different. It's subtle, but it's different. I mean,
it's one of, and I've spoken about this in the past as well, it's one of the, certainly in my generation of women in politics, it's one of the biggest kind of challenges and you know, difficulties you grapple with, because in my younger days in politics, you know, you're surrounded by men mainly, there's not a lot of women there, so subconsciously you start to behave like the men because that's the way you think you have to behave in order to succeed and get on. And if I look back in my younger years, you know, I took myself far too seriously. You know, I kind of adopted this very adversarial approach. Some would say I've never lost that, of course, but adopted that very adversarial kind of almost macho approach because that's what I thought you had to do.
Now, Margaret Thatcher is always a bit of a problem for left-wing feminists. The first British female Prime Minister, that should be something they celebrate, but they don't want to because she was right-wing. So she somehow cheated her way into power by leading like a man, whereas Nicola Sturgeon leads like a proper woman. So we must imply from this that there are two ways to lead. You either lead like a man or you lead like a woman. I wonder which one's best. If leading like a man is the best way, then maybe for leadership roles they should be for male only. If leading like a woman is the best, then leadership roles perhaps should be for women only. Or maybe if leading like a woman's the best, maybe we can allow men into these leadership positions, but only on the understanding that they're going to lead like a woman. Maybe in some contexts men are best. Maybe if you're starting a new business, you need someone who leads like a man, so you need a man. Maybe if you're running a social work department, you need someone who leads like a woman, so that job should just be for a woman. Now, hopefully you can see this is not a fruitful line of thinking, to say the least. What we need is good leadership. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. Now, Nicola Sturgeon said that she ended up taking on this flaw of behaving like men. In other words, taking on an adversarial approach to politics, but how she had to move beyond being like a man into the full blossoming of virtue of being a female-style politician. And it's quite funny listening to that. If you watch debates in the Scottish Parliament, it's actually completely the opposite. The men are quite meek and mild, and the women in general tend to be much more strident and on the front foot, shall we say.
How important is a group, a tribe of women around you? How important
is
that?
Hugely important. I mean, so important that, you know, I probably take it for granted a little bit. And if you didn't have it, you would really notice it. So for me, it's my mum, who luckily I do still have. My sister is hugely important. Me and my sister are really close. We're very different, but she's an absolute rock for me. And, you know, hopefully I support her when she's having tough times, but there's nobody, absolutely nobody, that is more on my side when I need it. A
tribe of women. I don't really feel a tribal allegiance to my sex. I mean, okay, I'm fine with the idea that we tend to have different relationships with people of different sexes. For example, I think most people would probably say their friends tend to be of the same sex, their family, obviously men and women, and then a spouse of the opposite sex, who would be the person that you're most close to, who would be the most important source of support in your life. But in the sisterhood attitude we've got here, it's only women that want to talk about. I find that quite odd. If someone said to me, tell me about the men in your life who support you and how important it is to have men around you, I think that would be quite an odd question, because I'd find it odd to be leaving out mention of my wife. But Nicola Sturgeon here, her husband doesn't get a mention because the focus is the sisterhood, and that's what comes first.
It's a real advantage for guys that women, particularly in politics. I mean, President Obama said that as well, that he had basically just suits the same colour, so he didn't have to decide what he was wearing in the morning. But frankly, as a woman in politics, you don't have that luxury because you are being judged on what you wear. I mean, guys, and there was a story a couple of years ago, I think, about a male newsreader who deliberately wore the same tie and suit every single day for a year to prove that nobody would comment on it, and nobody did comment on it. If a woman if I was to wear the same outfit 2 days in a row, I guarantee you the Daily Mail would do a double-page spread on how awful it was.
Now, I have to say, I find that a bit weak. If this is such a matter of principle that women in politics need emancipating from slavery to clothing variety, Nicola Sturgeon should be taking the lead and doing it. Break the mould. The Daily Mail would soon get bored reporting that she keeps wearing the same thing. But I can reassure Nicola Sturgeon that I really don't care how often she wears an outfit. Nicola Sturgeon is very comfortable talking about feminine qualities and masculine flaws. Now, as generalisations, there might be some truth in what she's saying. But I would ask Nicola Sturgeon, might it just be possible that there are actually some positive qualities that are more common in men than in women? I would urge you to consider that question, because if you're always lauding your own sex and denigrating the opposite sex, then you're a sexist. Right, thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe on YouTube. And we're a political party, the Scottish Family Party. You can join us via the link below.